Hey YouTube, this is Tech Savvy Solution here, and I'm here with what I promised to be a more in-depth look on Nintendo 3DS, and with me is a special edition white Nintendo 3DS, and yeah, trick, haha, not funny. It's a black Nintendo 3DS, but I anticipate that Nintendo will come out with a new white color for it when it decides to release more than just its black and blue edition. So tell me what you guys think the new white Nintendo 3DS will look like, and just put it in the comment section below. So I'm going to get on with what is going to be a physical review of the Nintendo 3DS, and the next part, part 3, will be more like a deeper look in the software of the Nintendo 3DS. So let's just take a look. So first let me start off by removing it from the charging dock, and my theory on the charging dock is that it's Nintendo's way of making it less obvious that you have to charge your Nintendo 3DS every night. Sorry to say, with the time that I've had this, the battery life isn't great at all. You have to charge it like at least every night when you're going to be playing games. And I wasn't even playing like that hardcore of games. It wasn't like 3D all the way. I was playing like regular Nintendo DS games, and already like I have to charge it and stuff. So like just having this charging dock here, it's convenient because you plug it into the outlet through this charging cable, and every night you're like, I'm just gonna sleep now, so I'm gonna set my 3DS not on my nightstand, but on this fancy dock, and it will sleep and have its own bed as I sleep and have my own bed. Anyways, yeah, so this charging dock is pretty cool. But that aside, let's get on with my infamous size comparisons. They might not be famous, but I'm going to make it a staple on most of my phone or Nintendo DS technology reviews, I guess. So let's start out with comparing these two with the Nintendo 3DS versus the HTC G2. And let's just take a look at the size. So in terms of thickness, let's rotate the two on their sides, and let's just look at a side that my lanyard isn't getting in the way. So you can see that the G2 is considerably thinner than the Nintendo 3DS. Well, that's because this is a phone, this is a gaming console, but still, so you guys have a good idea for those G2 owners of you guys. So let's take a look at the height comparison between the two, and of course the Nintendo 3DS is going to be taller, and in terms of width it's going to be wider. And some may argue for a smartphone that the T-Mobile G2 is like thick and it's heavy because of its industrial design and its slide-out keyboard. But compared to the 3DS, this thing is like, it's nothing more than just like a small paperweight, whereas this is just like hefty. But while this has a slide-out keyboard, Nintendo 3DS has its clamshell design, and then you really notice how thick and thin these two devices are. Thinner ones on the left, by the way. So the G2 aside, we can go ahead and compare it to a more familiar device. For those who have been keeping up with Nintendo's consoles, we have the predecessor to the Nintendo DS, the Nintendo Game Boy Advance SP, also with a clamshell design, probably the first, I believe, in the Nintendo market for clamshells. And comparing these two clamshells together, we have that the Game Boy Advance SP is actually thicker than the Nintendo 3DS. I used to think when it first came out that this is so tiny, it's just like a little cube and it can play like hardcore Game Boy Advance games. But hey, it's thicker. Right, so comparing it next with my metronome, or metronome/tuner, highly recommend it for you musicians out there. It's very useful. I use it like every day. Anyways, let's take a look at the thickness, and the Korg tuner/metronome is going to be thinner. And in terms of width, they're both going to be about the same. It's kind of close still. And of course, in terms of height, the Nintendo 3DS is going to be taller. So now onto a more accurate size comparison. Not accurate, but more like day-to-day size comparison, because you guys have all seen a dollar before. So let's take a look at the width of the dollar compared to the width of the Nintendo 3DS. You're going to find that the dollar is not going to be as wide. However, it is going to be taller than the Nintendo 3DS. And we're not even going to compare with the depth and thickness of the dollar versus the Nintendo 3DS. Now, onto more of my opinions on the design of the Nintendo 3DS. I'm liking that everything is glossy, even though it's a huge fingerprint magnet, but I like things shiny. So that's what the Nintendo 3DS offers. Everything is glossed. Everything except for like the analog stick is glossed. It's really, like, it gives a more futuristic look. However, in my opinion, everything is a bit blocky. I'm not sure if Nintendo intended for its design to be overly blocky, but like compared to something like the Nintendo DS Lite, which is a more like sleek, rounded look, this is like look, the top like juts out like this, and the sides have like a more like prism look to it, just like the original Nintendo DS. And I'm not that big of a fan. It's not as pronounced as like the the trapezoid style, like the trapezoid roof that the original Nintendo DS had, but it definitely has some resemblance. As the original Nintendo DS was the first to have dual screens, the Nintendo 3DS is the first to have 3D imaging in its gaming. So maybe Nintendo's trying to draw a correlation between the two by having a semi-reminiscent design. If you look closely, you'll notice the prism look of it. It's quite similar. But in terms of like the color choices I mentioned earlier in my unboxing, I'm not too much of a fan of like the crazy amount of color and like I guess the variety of color you could say in the Nintendo 3DS. It's just like, okay, you have a gradient from dark to light over here, you have a slight gradient from dark to light over here, and then you can't see it that well on the camera, but it's there, and you have like 3 different colors over here, and like, oh, inside it's like all one color, but then you still have like colors on the outside that are like just so many different shades. Why, Nintendo? Why? Anyways, it's a little too busy for me, but I appreciate Nintendo's new approach to colors and its design. So one thing that I forgot to mention in the unboxing is that this slide over here is actually for wireless. So for the Nintendo DS Lite, the slide used to be just for like powering on and powering off, and some people would get worried like, oh no, like what if I accidentally hit this in my pocket and it turns on and turns off? Well, no fear, the power button is over here inside the clamshell, so that concern is alleviated. But over here, it's really convenient that it's external for the wireless switch, so you don't have to navigate through menu settings and having to turn wireless on or off. It's just there, which is very convenient. They should have that on smartphones too, But anyways, it's convenient that they have it on the Nintendo 3DS. Now, moving on to the stylus, you'll notice that while this is a telescoping stylus, before it's telescoped, quote unquote, before it's extended, it's really quite small, because they've moved it. Instead of having the stylus out here, instead of having it like going this way, it has it sliding in this way, so it has to be really short. But let's just take a comparison to the Nintendo DS Lite stylus, which is considered to be an advancement over the original DS stylus. So we have the two here, and you'll notice that, oh my gosh, it's tiny. It's tiny. But then you see it like have a growth spurt, and yeah, it dominates. It's really cool because it's easier on the hands, especially for like adults with larger hands. It's easier to write. I mean, I have naturally small hands, so this doesn't apply to me, but it'll definitely be like the adults out there who like to play games definitely be happier with this. Alright, so as I mentioned before, the DS games go in through this slot, and it fits in pretty nice. And here's my flash card, and it works. It works to run homebrew and everything. Alright, nothing special here, just standard. So I encourage you guys to check out part 3 of my more in-depth look at the Nintendo 3DS, where I will be delving into the software of the Nintendo 3DS and just giving you guys a tour of the insides of the Nintendo 3DS. So I'll catch you guys later on the next part of the review.